It's going great, Red. Thank you for asking. It's already Wednesday. I feel like this week is going by... Like, I can't decide if it's going by fast or slow. Maybe it's because, like, I had a really long weekend. I just feel like the week should be... I feel like it's more of a Thursday or a Friday than a Wednesday. We're going through hump day, right, though? So it's all downhill from here. Hopefully it gets a little better. How you doing, Red? How's it going? Today we are going to talk about everyone's talking about it right now, and for good reason, right? But the one thing that I want to do about this subject is cure any kind of confusion about who's to blame for this, because the Republicans and the Democrats are already taking their sides and getting their talking points revved up about the oil crisis. The oil crisis is probably like one of the biggest things happening right now. Going pretty well. Good to hear. It's pretty, like right now, here's the thing. I think the Democrats kind of sense that they're in big trouble. They know that they're going to go down here because of this. Because it kind of happens every single time there's a big, huge problem when it comes to the economy. Whoever's in charge at the moment gets blasted during any elections that are nearby. Absolutely blasted. The only reason Trump lost, despite the fact that he was so good at doing stuff with the economy, was because COVID had interfered, and then Biden and the Democrats came in and made it seem like this was all Trump's fault, that the crashing economy was all Trump's fault. Economic trouble hurts presidents, it hurts politicians. And this oil crisis right now, this your skyrocketing prices at the pump, it spells doom for Democrats, 100%. They know they're in trouble. So they're trying to do what they normally do in this case, which is they're trying to point at somebody else and say, well, it's not our fault. It's theirs. And whoever they is at the moment. They always have some sort of scapegoat. Some sort of patsy. All right? They've got, right now, the oil companies. The oil companies are at fault for this. I'm honestly surprised that they haven't spoken more about Trump being at fault. But I guess Trump is becoming less of a threat to them in their eyes. DeSantis is actually starting to become more of a threat. And we'll see about that. Trump won that CPAC straw poll, but we'll see. I mean, that's still a ways off. What isn't a ways off here is midterms. Midterms are right around the corner. And we are expecting big gains for Republicans. Huge gains. But one of the issues, one of the reasons that this happened in the first place was because the Biden administration decided that it wanted to virtue signal about climate change. Climate change, we've talked about this in like the first episode of this show. Climate change is real for sure, but how effective is it? Or how does man affect climate change? We don't know yet. They don't want to talk about it. All they want you to know is that it's your fault somehow, and in order to fix the problem, the only way to fix the problem is to give them more power. Give them more power and they can save the world. So, day one, in a big virtue signal, Joe Biden shut down the construction of the Keystone Pipeline, and they did what Democrats do, which is make it next to impossible to drill here in America. They put you through so much red tape. Now, it's funny that you have Joe Biden over here talking about how, oh, yeah, well, you know, now the excuses are rolling out. Yeah, well, you know, the oil companies have leases. They're just not drilling, so don't blame me, blame them. Apparently, there are 9,000 federal government leases. What's up, Dennis? Welcome. And apparently they're refusing to drill, but the funny part is that they're not refusing to drill, they just can't. They have to go through miles and miles of red tape. They have more in terms of setup to do first before they can start drilling on land. And then even then, there's no guarantee that what the land they're drilling on is going to be productive, or at least that productive. This is like, we need a continuous cycle of drilling. We can't just halt it. But they do that to appease many of the activists and, you know, the Democrats that they've worked up. And also because, I mean, they want to push this whole green energy idea, which we covered on the first episode of this show, is a bad idea because no matter what you do, whether it's like you have a wind farm, okay, you put up a wind farm, you have to bulldoze a lot of the land in order to put it up. All right? And then on top of that, you know, you've got all the birds and the wildlife that kills. You want a solar farm, okay? Again, bulldoze the land. You've got to make room for these big solar farms in order, and you have to have miles of this stuff in order just to keep up with the energy production that is needed. Something that oil and gas can provide, and especially nuclear, which isn't even being considered. It's off the table by Democrats. They don't want it. Can't have it. But what is infuriating about this whole entire thing is, besides the fact that it's avoidable, is now that we're in the crisis, they want you to bear the brunt of it. And they're telling you, hey, you're doing your patriotic duty by doing this. Case in point, one of the things that came up today that just it really grinds my gears. Ignorance and elitism go hand in hand. I wrote this right before I went live because I saw that clip from Colbert, and some of you, I don't know if y'all saw it yourselves. Many of you steer clear of Colbert, and I don't blame you at all. Colbert, I actually used to watch Colbert a lot back when he was on the Colbert Show on Comedy Central. Back then, I thought he was at least a little funny. You know, him and Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart was actually pretty hilarious. Love him or hate him. He was pretty hilarious back then. That was back when Comedy Central actually had comedy. But Colbert has since become kind of the shill, hasn't he? He's become this, like, Democrat shill. And it's sad to look at. It's sad to watch because no matter what happens, he's all for it. But, like, recently he did something that just really proved just how elitist he was. I'm going to go ahead and let him say it himself.
I'll tell you what, I will never complain about a destination wedding again. Russia has been hit with a series of crippling sanctions, and it looks like there's more to come because the U.S. and its European allies are now discussing banning imports of Russian oil. Take that, Putin. We're not going to buy our gas from a war criminal. We're going to buy it from the good guys, Saudi Arabia. But it's going to cost. Since the invasion, oil prices have skyrocketed. Today, the average gas price in America hit an all-time record high of over $4 per gallon. Okay.
I see it as, like, apparently they're over $6 in some places. Which is, God help those people.
Okay, that stings, but a clean conscience is worth $1 or $2. I'm willing to pay...
Those trained SEALs just clapped for him, and that drives me crazy. That whole entire phrase that he just said here, you know, I'm going to let him finish real fast. I'm going to let you finish. Go ahead and take your applause.
It's important.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm willing to pay $4 a gallon. Hell, I'll pay $15 a gallon because I drive a Tesla. Right now, people all over the world are trying to find...
Okay, so... Everyone's focusing in on that $15 remark. Everyone's like, oh, that's horrible. How could he say that's so elitist? It's true. It is. But let's face it. That one, that was just a joke. That was a bad joke. It came off as bad because Colbert is just a bad comedian. He's not very funny. At least not anymore. So he told that $15 Tesla joke, ha ha ha, okay, and then everyone's like, oh my God, how could he say something? What really bothered me was this line.
Skyrocketed. Today, the average gas price in America hit an all-time record high of over $4 per gallon. Okay, that stings, but a clean conscience is worth $1 or $2. I'm willing to pay...
Okay, a clean conscience is worth $1 or $2. That's his reasoning right there. Oh yeah, he's telling the crowd who he makes... millions more than anybody in that crowd, I'm pretty sure. Millions more. This dude has, let me just say, this guy makes $15 million a year doing this show. He is worth $75 million. Okay? He doesn't, his clear conscience that's worth $1 or $2, this guy probably hasn't touched a gas pump in years. And even if he did, it wouldn't matter. He wouldn't even think about it. It's chump change to him. You know, it's the equivalent of you finding a nickel on the ground for him. It matters that little. Hey, Colbert, we should all buy Americans, so let's let our people get back to producing oil properly. Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. That's the thing. He's not wanting to talk about that. He's trying to appeal to your conscience. This man, who is not going to suffer from this oil crisis at all. Not because he drives a Tesla, but because he's got so much money that it doesn't matter. This dude is telling you, of all people, the people who are actually going to suffer for it, the people who actually have to get up in the morning, drive to work, drive to your kids' the schools to pick them up maybe, drive to the grocery store to get groceries. You're driving. This man is probably driven everywhere he goes, or at least most of the places he goes. But you're the one who has to sit there and pay the price at the pump. This dude, not even a little bit, but he's sitting there telling you that that in order to appease your conscience, you just have to pay a little more at the pump. It's not a big deal, but it's not $1 or $2 more, is it? It's an accumulation of dollars. It's not 1 or 2. It's probably about 15 to 20 at the pump. Just there. Your energy costs are going to go up everywhere. This man doesn't care. He can afford it. It's not a problem for him. But he's sitting there saying that you need to eat this cost. It's the patriotic thing to do. It's the right thing to do in order to deny these tyrants and, their oil, their money. Deny them their money so that they can, stop waging wars in Ukraine. Look, I feel for Ukraine. I really do. Okay? But this ain't the way. It would have been the way. And don't get me wrong. Let me say this. I am happy that we stopped, or that we can do something like that, where like we can cut off, buy 500,000 barrels of oil from Russia a day. I'm happy we can do that. But what's the point if we're just going to go and hand money to our other enemies? And not only that, Saudi Arabia is apparently not picking up the phone. Like, he's like, oh, we're going to get our oil from Saudi Arabia. Well, not according to, let's see. Biden tries to call Saudi Arabia and UAE, and they refuse to answer the phone. They're not even picking up the phone. Our oil prices are going to skyrocket. It wouldn't be that big of a deal if Joe Biden hadn't virtue signaled from day one and closed down or stopped the construction of the Keystone Pipeline and put all these companies through red tape that would drill for oil. Democrats do this every single time they get into office. Well, we're going to be carbon neutral. We're going to, stop. No more drilling in the United States. We're all going to have green energy. Well, we're all moving toward green energy. There is no such thing as all green energy. None. It can't happen. It's a pipe dream. It's something that you tell stupid people to make them believe that you're the good guy, but you're not the good guy. You are making people miserable. You are putting people in dire situations so that you can virtue signal and make yourself look good. And normally they would get away with it, but we are so bad off right now that it's actually starting to affect people pretty drastically. Just a year ago, we were paying less than $2. Now in some places they're paying more than $6. And they're going to look at Biden, they're going to say, this is your fault. They're going to look at Democrats and say, this is your fault. It is Biden's fault, first and foremost, clearly. Good morning to all. Oil is about extraction, transport, refining, and retailing. All of these components of the supply chain are under attack, making it impossible to do anything constructive versus Russia. Never let a crisis go to waste is in play. The agenda of making gasoline something America abandons due to cost has been incorporated into the U.S. agenda because of Ukraine. Yeah, that's actually a really good point, Dennis. They've been wanting to push green energy for so long, and here's their opportunity. But I mean, like, it's really hard to get people to listen when they're suffering, and they are suffering because of this, 100%. I like what Greg Gutfeld said. Squeeze the crude from Colbert's hair. That's actually good. That was good, Red. I read somewhere that the Alaska oil pipeline is running at 1/5 capacity and fracking plus trains remains idle. Which is weird to me. It's really weird to me, Dennis, because if you, like, even John Kerry admitted that pipelines are the safest and cleanest way to transport oil from one place to another. Because if you transport it via truck or train, you're still dealing with a ton of, carbon emissions being released into the air. And then there's the threat of crashes, and, which actually happens, I think, more than people understand, or leaks and all this stuff that happen during transport. Pipelines are just cleaner and safer. According to John Kerry. Y'all remember John Kerry, Swift boat guy? The guy who is like all about the environment, tried to make the environment like central to his entire presidential campaign years and years and years ago? John Kerry said that recently. It makes no sense. So it just really boils down to two things: a giant virtue signal, and B, I mean, judging by the way they are so entrenched in this green energy thing, there's got to be some sort of kickback happening here. Politicians have got to be getting paid. Those lobbyists must be in business there. There's always money involved in some way, shape, or form. But what you have Biden, you have Colbert, they're all trying to play off of your sense of patriotism with this stuff. And that drives me crazy because, like, oh, well, just suffer and endure this. Well, what are you going to suffer and endure? Not really. It also wouldn't be that big of a deal if Biden didn't make effing over the Saudis and UAE a core goal of his foreign policy from day one. Maybe that's why they're not picking up the phone. We need more nuclear power, too. Bush tried to streamline the process a little more, but we keep going backwards. Yeah, it's like I said, during the first episode, I wanted to tackle that. Nuclear. Nuclear is a big deal. Nuclear takes, like, nothing. It takes nothing to build on it. It takes, like, 1 square mile, whereas, you know, wind farms and solar farms, they take all of this land that absolutely destroys the environment that they're on, and it has to be so much of it because the amount of power that is necessary for Americans to live steadily is whopping. But nuclear power is so good. It takes 1 square mile. The amount of waste that it puts out, literally since the 1970s, we have filled a football field that is about how many yards deep? 10 yards deep? All right, that's it. That's ever since we started using nuclear power in the 70s. That's how long it's been, or how much we put out. And who knows what we can do with that if we just, you know, learn how to utilize it more. Nuclear power is the solution. It is the solution. Domestic drilling and nuclear power, boom, we're done. We don't need any more help. But instead, these people are constantly up our butts about, well, you know, you're all polluters and you're horrible, and the only way to save the planet that you're destroying is to put us in power. And we're going to pass all these energy laws. Well, okay, so now you're in power. You've gotten your little virtue signals off, and now we're paying $6+ a gallon at the pump. Our energy prices and costs are going up. Y'all, we have a higher gas. Some places have higher gas costs than they displayed in I Am Legend, that post-apocalyptic movie with Will Smith. That's how bad it's gotten. Kira, nice work on the rebuttal the other night. Love the Harris pantsuit line. Kira's a genius, y'all. What's up, Kira? Welcome. And what's up, Daniel? How you guys doing? The pantsuit deserved its own response. Something about, like if you wear... You know, it kind of harkens back to, in my opinion, to the white suit. Or no, was it the tan suit that Obama wore? It's like, bold choice. Bold choice. But I liked Greg Gutfeld's response to Biden. Biden was out there talking about how, you know, he's like, well, you know, we need to do this for merit, for freedom. We need to bear these costs and endure this hardship for freedom. And Greg Gutfeld had a really good response. He said, Biden said defending freedom comes at a cost. And that is not true. That is not. It's the environmental claptrap that comes at a cost. 100% he's correct on that. Like, the expense... The expense, it would be worth it if we were seeing some sort of, like, comeback. But we're not. Like, it's not coming back to us at all. Again, we're not allowed to talk about the science. The science is settled, everybody, which is one of the most unscientific phrases you could possibly say. But apparently, we're not allowed to talk about it. But we're not seeing anything come back to us, except for more hardship. This is not about freedom. There would be no cost if we didn't demonize drilling, if we didn't shut down pipelines, if we didn't demonize fossil fuels. Amen. And by the way, I want to mention this. In the United States, our refining process for fuel has gotten so good that our fuel is literally the cleanest in the world. And if they really are concerned about saving the environment, they would allow us to drill, process, and refine and ship out from here. If they are actually concerned, which I don't think they are, given the amount of hypocrisy you see from them. So it's not about defending Ukraine, he added. It's about exposing the destructiveness of, I would say, the green ideology, or I call it the Church of Climate Change personally, because it to me seems a lot like a religion to these people. A lot like a religion, like weird stuff that they do. You know, in order to push this idea that climate change is upon us and we're all going to die soon. So we must appease the gods, whoever they are, by handing everything over to socialism, which is pretty much everything. The Green New Deal is actually just like straight communism, if you look at it. Which is part of a larger ideology of punishment, right? Original said. Rich countries can handle this. Just pay more gas. It's the poor countries that are going to suffer, and it's going to be the poor people in the United States, right? Correct. Correct. Again, Colbert, Biden, they're not going to have to worry about this stuff. They're rich. They're rich. You will have to worry about it. You, the everyday Joe. You're going to have to worry about it. You're going to be paying the most. It's going to come. You're going to see that. You're going to see that effect on your bank account. They're not. Chump change for them if they even have to pump their own gas. So you have Twitter celebrities like George Takei and other losers who will say, you should pay more to support Ukraine, just like Colbert did. But they're not truckers, they're not salesmen, they're not Uber drivers. This is the same detached mentality that we found with shutdowns, right? Everybody could handle a shutdown if they were in the media because all we did our shows from our living rooms. And same people that tell us to live with it can live with anything. So that's either climate change, COVID, inflation, and once you see that, you can't unsee it. There's an ideology of punishment, and it's that you can handle the punishment, they're above it. So anytime that they make these rules, these elitists, they make these rules or they bring this trouble upon us, they don't really suffer from it. You do. You suffer from it. They don't care. They can sit there and preach to you all day. They can signal their virtues, and it costs them nothing, but it costs you everything. That is sick. It is sick, and it's so sad. Greg Gutfeld is so incredibly right. We endure everything. And what's sad is that we don't have to. Energy independence is within our grasp, but because they need a virtue signal, we're not going to have that. I love how the Dems are now saying the president can't impact gas prices. It's amazing how quickly Dems' talking points go from yes, we can when campaigning to of course we can't when governing. Yeah. Or it's somebody else's fault, which is exactly what the Biden administration is doing right now. They're pointing at the, they're pointing at the oil companies and saying, oh, well, it's their fault. It's their fault because they're not wanting to drill. They're not wanting to drill at all. But Mike Summers of the American Petroleum Institute actually kind of explained why they're not, despite the fact that there's 9,000 federal drilling leases, why there's not a lot of drilling going on. He said, just because you have a lease doesn't mean there's actually oil and gas in that lease. And there has to be a lot of development that occurs between the leasing and then ultimately permitting for that acreage to be productive. I think that they're purposely misusing the facts here to advantage their position. I think he's right. Hey, Susie, how's it going? Welcome. If the U.S. does not ramp up oil production to the point where we can show our population and Europe feel less pain from sanctions than the Russians feel, we lost the economic pressure game. Absolutely. Energy independence would go a long way. Not to mention the fact that if people were relying on us for oil, the world would be a better place. Because when America is weak, the world tends to fall into darkness. We are the leader, the world leader. At least here in the West. And in a lot of parts of the East, okay? When we lead, things become more fair. Business becomes more open. The world becomes safer, period. And every single time Democrats get into power, they think that they're being better world citizens by backing down, by bowing to other leaders, and by, handing off these, making these deals with our enemies. Because, we're great world statesmen. We're making these deals. But, as Trump showed us, like him or not, he walked in the office and he goes, holy crap, these deals are horrible. The Iran deal was a really good example. These deals are horrible. I'm breaking all this. Boom. NATO, you guys are paying up. Boom. We were doing great. COVID hit us hard. But again, COVID is another example of how the elitists make these decisions that we suffer from. COVID was not something that was, I feel like at the very beginning, there was a time when we were like, all right, we need to be careful. We need to learn more about this thing, but we learned more about it quickly. But despite the fact that more and more information showed us that we were not facing the end times and everything would be fine, if we just took certain precautions, specifically for the people who actually would suffer from it, they took precautions, we would be fine. We could open up, we could have business, our economy didn't have to suffer. People didn't have to lose their jobs. People didn't have to fall into massive amounts of depression. People didn't have to, stay home while their loved ones were being buried. They could see their loved ones in the hospital. Like, all of this stuff could have been avoided. But the elitists were sitting there trumpeting this idea that unless we did what they said and agreed with their draconian measures, we were all going to die. They continued to bang that drum for forever. Did they suffer from it? No, they didn't have to suffer anything from it. They hardly even followed their own rules, whether it's Gavin Newsom in California or whether it's Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. They weren't wearing masks until the cameras came on. Then suddenly they were wearing masks. The elitists do not have to suffer their own rules, but you do. And Gutfeld is right. This is just one after another. It was the COVID crisis. Now it's the oil crisis. And you have to bear the brunt of it because we're all in this together. But you know what? They're not in it with you. They just want you to bear the brunt. And right now, you're bearing the brunt of someone else's incompetence. Namely the Democrat party's, namely Joe Biden's. The little people. Yep. Us the peasantry. The peasantry. We'll just eat cake. Ordinary people matter. Yeah. By the way, everyone is talking about Biden canceling Keystone and NWR drilling, but not him withdrawing from the Israeli gas pipeline, benefiting Erdogan and the process. I did not hear about that. I did not hear about that at all, but I am not surprised. High gas prices are going to be the tool of control, replacing masks as the tool of choice for social engineering. God, this is why, y'all, all I can say is vote accordingly. Vote accordingly. This always happens when Democrats get into power and they seize power. There is a reason that you see red states during the COVID time. Their red states were succeeding and they were fine. Economic powerhouses. The infections and the death rates were just the same, if not better than some of the blue states that had more draconian lockdowns. But you see the blue states were failing miserably. They were horrible, so horrible that you had mass exoduses from places like New York and California coming down to Texas or Florida. Trust me, I can't step outside my front door without seeing 5 new people that I've never seen before. Okay, it is really bad in Texas right now. Everyone's coming here, but there's a reason for that. It's because we are an economic powerhouse. We are business friendly. Our cost of living is low. Our taxes, our state tax is non-existent. We don't have any. All right, we have a lot of freedoms here. Our quality of life is just better. And it's because we do not lock down our citizens, either whether it be a physical lockdown or with taxes or regulations. Laws on laws on laws. We don't defund our police. Well, some of the blue cities do. But they're idiots. Just get a Tesla. Yeah, just get a Tesla. Peasants. Let them drive Teslas. That's it. That's it. That's the new. It went from let them eat cake and now it's let them drive Teslas. I need that meme whipped up. I need it whipped up now. Just like either George Takei or Stephen Colbert. Let them drive Tesla. Like in full regalia, full Marie Antoinette regalia. Just let them drive Teslas. This is why you should care about the madness in California. This electric car nonsense comes directly from us. They're very common here because of our weather, but completely impractical everywhere else. But elitists like Colbert just have a California perspective, and so talk about it like it's normal. And that's one of the issues that you have with elitists. When you become so rich and powerful, you kind of start to lose track of the real world a little bit. When you're that high in your tower, you kind of forget what it's like to be on the ground. And by the way, does not apply to every single rich person I know. I mean, Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, and this dude seems to know more about what it's like to be a regular person than many of the people who make billions less than him. But you can kind of bubble yourself in a culture that makes you forget. You live in a neverland that makes you forget, and you kind of start to see things from a perspective that is a little less than realistic. You forget that there are struggles that people endure. It's that Marie Antoinette syndrome of, well, they're out of bread, we'll let them eat cake. She didn't really say that, by the way, historically inaccurate, but it's that feeling, that kind of mentality. You can kind of see it on display, and you just saw it on display with Colbert. We're all just going to have to pay a few bucks more for a clean conscience. No, we don't. We don't have to do that. This doesn't have to. It's not a few bucks more, and I don't see you having to pay it. But it's not a clean conscience. It's not. We don't have to be enduring this. Let them drive Teslas. Even Elon Musk has become a realist about the limits of electricity replacing oil. We can improve oil supply in the short term. Climate change industry shifts take decades. Yes, exactly. He has done that. I'm kind of a Musk stan. Not going to lie. I'm a little bit of a Musk stan. I like the guy. I would like to just, I would not survive a day in his shadow, but I would like to follow this dude around for like a week or even a year and just kind of just learn from him, given I wouldn't be able to keep up with him. He seems like the kind of guy who would wake up at 5 a.m. and be like, how come you're not up yet? I've been up for 2 hours. Are you lazy? I've got 50 million ideas that we need to get through right now. The good news is that I think that the Democrats, due to their incompetence, are kind of facing the end of their power right here. Obviously, a recall election of Biden would be hilarious, but I doubt that's going to happen. But what is going to happen is in midterms, I am predicting, like many Republicans are, that the Democrats are pretty much going to take a short break, hopefully a very long break, from being the majority. I'm going to go ahead and dive into this. When it's clear that the Biden administration, the Democrats at large, have failed in many ways. By the way, all this is up at redstate.com right now. You can head there right now and follow along with me, or visit afterward, or visit all the time. Visit all the time. We'd love to have you. We got some really great writers here, including Kira Davis, who is currently in the chat, as well as Dennis Santiago, who is just amazing. While it's clear that the Biden administration and the Democrats at large have failed in many ways, what's really going to sway people is how hard they've been hit here at home. Needless to say, we've been hit by not one, but several events that lead all the way back to the Oval Office. Rising crime across the nation thanks to Democrats' anti-policing policies, a border crisis, and now out-of-control inflation, skyrocketing gas prices. The gas crisis might be the straw that broke the camel's back for many Americans, and Republicans are anticipating big gains when it comes to pulling the levers, according to Fox News. I once read that the party in power always loses when gas prices are above a certain threshold. They are currently above that threshold, Cassidy said. This is Bill Cassidy, by the way. Historically, inflation works against the party in control of Washington, Rep. Morgan Griffith of Virginia, who sits on the House Energy and Commerce Committee, told Fox News Digital. Rep. Gus Bilirakis of Florida, who also sits on the committee, touted the American Energy Independence from Russia Act, which, quote, would require the president to unleash America's oil and natural gas production to offset Russian imports. Ted Cruz also came out with his own bill, from what I understand. The rush to make America energy independent is on. And I do not blame many Republicans for trying to come and kind of make that happen to facilitate that, because this iron has never been hotter. And we need to make it we need to take the ability to just completely stop oil production away from the White House. I think that it should be a little bit more complicated of a situation, because energy is integral to the health of America. And just one man with an agenda being able to just swipe a pen and make it all stop, that just doesn't seem right to me. I don't like that. there needs to be a lot more pomp and circumstance before that can be decided on. We have seen a 50% increase in energy prices since President Biden took office, and the Russian war in Ukraine will only cause these prices to climb, Bilirakis said. Instead of flipping the switch and saying yes to American energy, the president is inexplicably doubling down on failed strategies. We need to readjust our entire thinking with the understanding that energy security is national security. Like I just said, the health of the nation and our ability to produce energy is almost, they're hand in hand. You can't just suddenly stop energy and make America dependent on everyone else, especially our enemies. And then expect national security, not just national security, but global security to remain static. It's not going to happen. That is so stupid. I do not know who thought that this was a good idea, except for the lobbyists and the Democrats who benefit from it, clearly. These sentiments are shared by House Minority Whip Steve Scalise, who noted that Democrat policies are causing mounting prices at the pump and pointed back to just a few years ago when gas prices under Republican-encouraged energy independence were less than $2 a gallon. We can already see the Republican strategy against Democrats taking shape, and this is just one of the angles they're going to take when running against Democrats. However, Democrats are already attempting to mount a defense, claiming that it's not their policies causing prices to rise, but corporate greed. The bottom line is this. The real problem with increased gas prices is gouging and monopolies, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said Tuesday. You're going to hear a lot more from us on this issue in the near future. Okay, so that he just basically said, we're going to start pointing at the gas companies, and we're going to start accusing them of monopolizing and trying to price gouge. That's going to be. I would like to see them present proof. Like solid, good evidence that this is their fault. Don't get me wrong. I don't trust corporations as far as I can throw them. But I think it's pretty clear that a lot of this energy crisis is coming from the fact that they have basically tied many of these companies and these drilling companies, their hands behind their back. How do we know that? Because Biden bragged about it even before that was one of the vows he made before he got elected. And then on day one, he's starting to swipe things off left and right. Nope, no more this, no more that, no more that. Look at how green I am. In Russia, Putin's propaganda machine is trying to convince people to go back to Cold War minimalism, their response to sanctions. They are saying they can outsuffer us. It may work. I mean, they are Russian. I mean, they are used to suffering. Trust me. I do not doubt that they could act. They're a little bit tougher than us. Here's the thing. I mean, like we have lived in pretty nice times. You know, we are in the future. We are living in the future. I mean, given we don't have hoverboards, I don't know what that's about. Like, I was supposed to have a hoverboard at what was it, 2016, 2015? Back to the Future made some promises that the world didn't deliver on, and I'm very upset about that. I want my hoverboard. The thing is, to win, we need to show we can not suffer. I mean, that's actually pretty, yeah. We can be smarter about things. Much smarter about things. And by the way, this is actually also the fact that the Democrats and specifically Biden, his administration, has screwed up this bad is also a threat to national security. Because everyone should be looking at America, hearing what we're saying and going, duh, I don't know why they didn't do that. Politics has gotten in our way so bad. The trouble I see is that we always say this. They're losing their power. I doubt it will last. Even if it does, most of our weasels won't actually capitalize on fixing anything. Look, the law of undulation is absolute. You're going to have their peaks and every party, every politician is going to have his peaks and valleys. All right? And right now, Democrats are down here. Now, there will come a time when they rise back to power. Something's going to happen. People are going to forget. We've got short memories. But at least right now, people are finally remembering, oh yeah, these guys suck. They're the worst. And the GOP needs to start running ads everywhere showing Biden statements on stopping oil production. Why aren't they doing this? Agreed. But I mean, here's the thing. I think the GOP could win on two fronts. We've already shown that we can actually oust embedded Democrats like Terry McAuliffe in Virginia by reminding them that Democrats have this agenda for their children that just isn't right. It is not right. Did y'all see? Oh my gosh. Now that I'm thinking about this, we're gonna do a slight detour here because I think that this is important. One of the things that if the Republicans really want to win against Democrats, join the fight, folks. Join the fight. If they really want to win against Democrats, they should go and really press hard about the fact that the Democrats have become nothing short of dangerous to their children. 100%. And I think that's becoming a pretty standard thing. Like, we all know this now. Uh-oh. We all know this now. There was reason they become very open and blatant and hubristic about trying to introduce your children to LGBT stuff, trying to inject them with gender fluidity and all these ideas, trying to convince them that they're trans and then keep it from the parents. And then, like, let's face facts, the left, the radical left in particular, has a pedophilia problem. And yesterday, on the VIP side, we actually released an article that showed this clip of these women who opened up a sexy summer camp for children that teaches them how to effectively pleasure themselves while on drugs, by the way. That was actually part of it. Like, that's how hubristic they've gotten about it. So I think if we run on that, we're good to go. Like, we could seriously, we could dig out some seriously entrenched Democrats if they hold on tight to this idea that these teachers' unions and stuff like that should be in charge, that the parents should have no say whatsoever about what's going on in these schools, because that's what they represent right now, that kind of radicalism. The teachers' unions especially, they're out of control and weird. The other thing is that, exactly, we need to show that Biden has purposefully stopped us from getting our own oil, and it made it so much worse for us in the long run. We do that, and I swear that they will not stand a chance. That many of the fallout from it will be felt in other campaigns from the Democrats supporting this guy. It's like, well, how come you supported this? So this is kind of your fault. You're a little complicit. You're an accomplice. Bye. Republicans could seriously clean house here. Biden's administration being in denial that they have to deal with runaway pain will be as much a cause for global stability breaking down. The hard truth is that we are playing into Putin's hands. Oh, yeah. By not having our own power, or energy, absolutely. But here's the other thing. I mean, like, the culture that we currently have is also playing into his hands. We are a culture of weakness right now. We are more at war with each other than we are with Putin. Big time. And I'm not saying we all need to hold hands and sing Kumbaya, but, like, the elements that we're at war with in our country they're radical. They're absolutely radical. No way, like I just covered. I mean, like, they're now trying to have sexy summer camps for your kids. Why does anyone want to do that? Oh, right. Thank you, Red, for reminding me. So, just a quick, I wanted to say this. We actually have a friend of the show who lost his house and his business in a tornado. Dennis, thank you so much for stopping by, man. I really appreciate it. He lost his house and his business in a tornado. He runs a coffee business. He actually created a coffee based with my name on it. It was really nice of him to do. But he's a really awesome guy, really kind. What Red just posted to the chat is a little bit of some charity, like a, what's it called? It's not a GoFundMe. I forget what it's called. But in any case, he just posted it to the chat. Go there, and if you can donate anything, it would be very much appreciated. We thank you very much for your help. Smod now. Yeah, there it is. The Fundly link. Fundly. Fundly.com. It's not GoFundMe. It's Fundly. Much better. Sweet Meteor of Death. Yeah. That the fact, you know, it should bother people, and I do not understand why it doesn't. Like, these people have gone beyond crazy. Beyond crazy. Here's the other thing, and this kind of leads into my other. I'm going to go back to this in a second, but since I'm stun locked on this now, I'm stun locked. This whole entire this whole entire thing about this Florida bill, I think we've already discussed it. But this whole entire thing about the Florida bill that people are reacting to, why are Democrats, of all people, trying to fight against a bill that stops teachers or educators or anybody from introducing sex and sexuality to children 3rd grade and below? Why is that necessary? Florida students spoke loud and clear this week against the GOP's bill to cancel free speech and LGBTQ people, and they're going to say gay anyway. RT, if you will too. Mark Hamill, dude, I love you, but why did you go on that little? Don't do that, dude. Come on, Luke. Don't do that, man. But why are they fighting against that bill? It doesn't even say what they say it says. Nowhere in there is it canceling free speech for the LGBTQ crowd. Nowhere. They're talking about stopping the introduction of sexual concepts to very young children. When you were in kindergarten, were you thinking about sex? When you were in the 3rd grade, were you thinking about sex? No. You were probably way more concerned about, like, what video games I was going to play. Who's going to play hide and seek with me later? You know, what are my action figures? You know, that's the kind of stuff that you're concerned about. But these people want to basically, I mean, let's face facts, guys. This is grooming. This is straight grooming. If you're trying to introduce sex and sexuality to a small child, you have no good intentions. None. And the fact that, like, look, they're introducing themselves, these pedophiles, they're introducing themselves at this point in time as not pedophiles because that's too harsh. Now it's minor attracted persons, or MAPS. SMOD. The blue milk hit hard. It's just disgusting. You have no good intentions. None. What do you need these kids to know? Why do you need them to know anything about masturbation? Why do you need them to know about illicit drugs? Why? Why do you need them to be gender fluid? This was happening in Kentucky, by the way, the sexy summer camp, and apparently there was another one discovered in Indiana. They are after your children. And no, it's not just like these crazy, like, fringe ladies. This is happening at school too. I mean, there were 2 books that recently were released. One of them was called Lawn Boy, where, you know, it basically promoted a young child, you know, engaging in sex with an older man. And there was another book that actually depicted graphic homosexual acts in the book. This is a book that they're handing to children. And this is happening in public schools. And by the way, whenever one superintendent was confronted about this, the fact that they had these books literally on display in the library window, so it was like, you know, people would walk by and be like, oh, check out that, look at that. He compared it to art, like Michelangelo. These people are deranged. And they're after your kids. Does that sound hyperbolic? It's not. They are after your kids. Anyway, I got unlocked for a minute there, sorry. Joy Reed says world only cares about Ukraine because it's white and largely Christian. I kind of want to address this because I disagree with this big time. Let's go ahead and watch this.
Now, what we're seeing in Ukraine is absolutely the worst humanitarian crisis that Europe has seen in decades. But we haven't witnessed the same type of solidarity for the Yemenis as we do for the Ukrainians. We don't see historic sanctions or global campaigns, corporations like Airbnb and Netflix taking a stand. And this is not to say that we shouldn't care this much for Ukraine. Far from it. The point is we should also care this much for refugees and those facing occupation and war in the Middle East and Asia and Africa, too. The coverage of Ukraine has revealed a pretty radical disparity in how human Ukrainians look and feel to Western media compared to their browner and blacker counterparts.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there because this is ridiculous. 2 things. One, the war in Yemen has been going on for some time now. It's more or less old news. The press had moved on. It has nothing to look. It has nothing to do with race or skin color. Nothing to do. Here's the thing. What we do know is that this war in Ukraine has a lot more effect on us than the war in Yemen does. Period. And this is also very fresh. It was very sudden. It was very shocking to watch. And clips are coming out all the time of innocent Ukrainians. I watched a clip this morning of a tank coming around, a Russian tank coming around down the street as some Ukrainians were driving in their, innocent civilian Ukrainians were driving in their car, and that tank lit that car up, destroyed it. Everyone inside is obviously dead. It is shocking to watch. And it was sudden, and it's new, and it's fresh, and it's wow. And it's dynamic, and it's crazy. This is why we're paying attention to it. If this Ukrainian-Russian thing had been going on for some time, and we had no dogs in the fight anymore, and suddenly Yemen popped up, and the Yemen thing just started now, and all these clips and stuff were coming out, yeah, it'd be shocking, and we'd be focusing on that too. This is pure race baiting by Joy Reid. Pure race baiting by Joy Reid. And this is what happens when you get so ingrained in your bubble that you see everything through a lens of race. You try to make the people suffering in Ukraine a racial issue. It's racist for you to care about Ukraine if you don't care about the war in Yemen just as much. Here's the funny part. And when I say funny, I mean that very lightly. If tomorrow a war in Israel popped up, seriously, Yemen is not being invaded by a nuclear world power or isn't on the board of NATO countries. Exactly. It has. We have next to no dog in that fight, so it's not as big of a deal to us. But if a war in Israel started tomorrow, do you think that Joy Reid would actually care? Or do you think that she would actually be kind of like a little giddy over it? Because the left does not like Israel. Period. They do not like Israel. And every time something really bad happens to Israel and Israel fires back, who do they point to as the aggressor? Israel. Whenever they throw out facts and figures, look at how many Israelites died versus, any given country that they were under attack. The Gaza Strip. How many people died? Well, here's the thing. Why would you attack Israel? It is better equipped. They've got more protection. Okay? More technology. These people are free and they're well fed, they're well trained. Meanwhile, you guys are still living in conditions that are considered third world. Why are you attacking them? They're not doing anything to you. Israel had to have an iron dome because these people just constantly launch rockets at them. They want that war. Now, if all-out war were to happen tomorrow, Joy Reid wouldn't give a damn. I guarantee you, though, if she did have any comments about it, it would be about how horrible Israel is. Period. This is just pure and simple race baiting. This is a really good representation of why the mainstream media should not be listened to at this point. You've got Colbert and his elitism trying to talk to you like you need to bear this brunt of all this stuff because, it's your conscience you need to appeal to. You have Joy Reid over here trying to make it all racial. Okay? These people are not serious people. The media is not your friend. They are not here as a public service. They are not trying to make you think. They're trying to tell you what to think. These people are idiots trying to make you an idiot. That's really what it boils down. And not just make you an idiot. They're trying to make you a racist, like as Joy Reid is proving. Is this really necessary? In why do we let these people have these stages? This is pure unadulterated racism. Well, you only care because they're white. No. How dare you put that narrative out and a blanket blame everybody for caring about Ukraine because they're racist? Joy Reid is one of the worst grifters, I swear. Colbert and Sulu both. Yeah, they're horrible. What's up, John? How you doing, man? When better for them to properly distort reality than to start early. Yemen is... I read that. Also, I don't remember Joy Reid or any of the leftist media being upset by the Iranian proxy invasion of Yemen. Their argument is, quote, we don't care about Yemen, so you don't care. So you can't care about Ukraine. Yeah, very good point, Daniel. Very good point. They're very choosy about what they are getting upset about. They're very choosy about what the issue is. Right now, it's an issue because, well, they need it to be one. People like Joy Reid need this to be an issue. They need to keep the race grift alive. Because, I mean, look, if tomorrow it was proven that America was the least racist country in the world, unadulterated proof that they could not argue against, Joy Reid would be out of a job. Al Sharpton would be out of a job. These grifters, left and right, would be out of jobs. They need us to be at each other's throat. They need us to be fighting one another over petty BS. They need it. They will constantly push racism and the idea of racism and racist narratives, and they will constantly point fingers to this person and victimize that person and make it seem like there is an us versus them mentality in this country because it's good for business. Joy Reid is proof of that. Joy Reid is one of the worst grifters in America. She is obsessed with race. That's the only thing that she can. That's the only way that she will look at any given situation is through that lens. But she does it because if she stops, she loses business. She will be out of a job tomorrow if she stops being racist herself. Period. What's up, Strife? Be sure to read this post. I need the money. Yeah, go to Red State right now. Click on the post. Every single one of these posts that I've been talking about right now are awesome. Strife especially, man. He's great. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, I invite you to hit the button. We're pushing for 1,500 as our next goal post. Yep. By the way, like this stream. Press like if you haven't already. Click the like button. Subscribe. Click the bell button so that you know when we go live. Thank you for the plug, Red. Really appreciate it. Sorry you're late. You're not late. A John is never late. He arrives precisely when he means to. But I'm glad you're here, bud. Glad you're here. Project Veritas catches New York Times reporter admitting inconvenient things about January 6th. So I haven't gotten to read this yet. So we're about to see this, a live reaction. Project Veritas, whose recent work includes exposing ESPN's racism and the FDA's politicization, strikes again. The undercover journalism outfit has released a video of a reporter for the New York Times making some very inconvenient admissions about January 6th. Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter Matthew Rosenberg was caught mocking his colleagues and pointing out that they exaggerated the danger they were in during the breach of the Capitol early last year. Really? Is that so? Is anybody surprised? Is anybody at all surprised?
It's like January 6th stuff that is like so over at this point. It's so over. The left's overreaction, the left's reaction to it in some places was so over the top. It was like me and two other colleagues who were there, who were outside. And we were just like, dude, come on. Like, you were not in any danger.
Matthew Rosenberg is a Pulitzer Prize-winning national security correspondent for the New York Times. In multiple meetings with one of our undercover journalists, Rosenberg reveals a lot about the inner workings and inner turmoil at the Times. For starters, he doesn't hesitate to undermine his own paper's coverage of the events that took place in our nation's capital.
Just real fast, I kind of want to put this out there because it really makes you think. How come they keep falling for this? Like, over and over again. Dude, I love Project Veritas. I actually used to work with Project Veritas. I was part of a sting in Austin years and years and years ago. But, like, you would figure by now many of these, like, leftists in these positions would just be like, I ain't saying nothing. I don't know you. I ain't saying nothing. I don't mess with this. You got a camera on you probably. I ain't saying nothing. But they continue to, it's like they want to talk to somebody. It's like they have to talk to somebody about this. Dude, good on O'Keefe, man. Good on O'Keefe. F's in the chat for the narrative. F's in the chat for the narrative.
On January 6th, 2021, and chides corporate media's reaction, or in his own words, overreaction.
Like, I think you could tell how much fun we had on January.
Oh, that's great. Are you allowed to have that much fun on January 6th? Or just supposed to be morning?
I know.
Wait, oh, I see what happened. It's a female. So I'm guessing she pretended to go on a date with this guy. I'm guessing this guy is single and ready to mingle. That's my guess. And so he's trying to spill the beans on the inside of things. And I guess he's confessing to this girl in an effort to seem cool. But going back, so he had a blast on January 6th. A blast from a guy who's supposed to be traumatized.
I know. It's also if you're traumatized. But like all these colleagues who were in the film, a little younger, who's like, oh my god, it's so scary. I'm like, oh god.
Is that really the vibe there?
From them. I'm like, come on. Like, it's not the kind of place I can say tell somebody to man up, but I kind of want to. You're like, dude, come on. Like, you were not in any danger.
Got in Zola, got in Adam, Goldman, someone should be in the cover, bunch of photographers. Then there were people inside the Capitol.
Yeah, who's inside?
This lady looks like she's about to put Harry Potter in detention and make him write, "I must not tell lies," using a magic quill that scratches it into the back of his hand.
Bunch of photographers. Then there were people inside the Capitol.
Yeah, who's inside?
Little dweebs who keep going on about their trauma. I'm like, guys, shut the enough. I guess it was scarier.
Did they write about it? Oh god, please tell me who so I can read.
This guy uses the term beta male in private, unironically, 100%.
I don't know if they wrote about their trauma. This chick named Emily Cochran and this guy named Nick Fandos. They're both like in their 20s.
Nick Fandos?
Fandos. They covered Nick doesn't anymore. They covered Cochran.
Dude, it's so obvious. It's so obvious that she's like, let me get these names straight. Nicholas Fandos? Fandos. Okay. How does he not pick up at this point? Like, it's so obvious. The moment that she was trying to get the names correct, I would have been like, I gotta go.
The story I got sucked into doing was like, I do investigative stuff. I usually do like longer term things. But I got back to work on Monday, and the managing editor had a great idea that he could have had a month ago, which was like, we should really, me and a colleague had done like a very long 7,000 word story last year in February about like kind of the big lie about the Stop the Steal campaign, which was a very organized campaign. It wasn't like an organic thing. He's like, can we do like part 2 of that, like what's going on in the years from January 6th, kind of like memory holing it, like making it it's no big deal? Yeah, we can do that. A little quick turnaround. So we've been doing the last few days. That's the story. But it's in a meeting. I'm like, one of the issues here is that, like the Fox News of the world and elsewhere, is that the left's reaction to it in some places was so over the top that it gave the opening the right even to start introducing the idea of, well, these people are out of control. Like, it's not a big deal as they're making it. Because they were making too big a deal. They were making this organized thing that it wasn't.
Dude, 100. He's telling the God's honest truth here. Because like even like many people, like unless you were really invested in the fact that this needed to be that big of a deal, many people were like, dude, clearly a lot of unanswered questions. Look, I'm not saying rioting inside the Capitol was good at all, but like if you really look, like the only people who really died, I think, was that one woman. That was it. As another guy died later. I think if I'm not mistaken, one of the policemen, the Capitol policemen, died, but it was later on, they said. It didn't happen at the Capitol like they originally reported. It was later on, and it was due to something completely unrelated. And people were going in and doing it for the gram, and like they were trying to call it like a revolution or some sort of insurrection. That was the word. The insurrection. It's like, dude, if it was an insurrection, it would have been way bloodier than that. The people who were breaking in would have been doing so with guns and firing at police officers and basically trying to violently take the Capitol, which they did not do. They were sitting there and sitting in Nancy Pelosi's office and getting pictures of themselves taken. My favorite picture was one guy who's carrying out a podium. He looked like that one character from Frozen. Hello, big summer blowout. Like that guy. He's got like this big smile on his face as he's waving. You had the Buffalo preacher or whatever is it? What is it? The Buffalo shaman guy, who's clearly insane. You had police officers. I remember one guy was sitting. It was while the Buffalo shaman was in the podium, and there was one guy just kind of like on the phone sitting down below him. And like this police officer, this guard was in the room with them, and he was like asking them politely to leave. But according to the left, this was one of the most tragic moments in American history. Not since the Capitol was under attack by the British was this been so like such a horrible thing. By the way, Antifa had rioted in the Capitol not too far around that time, but nothing about that. So we're sitting here and I'm watching this and I'm just like, wow, this seems really overdramatic. But man, they pounded the hell out of that narrative. And like a year later, they were like retrospectives. By the way, CNN tried to hold that entire retrospective and like nobody tuned in. Nobody. Two things can be true at the same time. Rioting inside the Capitol is bad. We can all agree that, right? But let's call it what it is. Okay? If it was Antifa, they would have set the place on fire. They would have set the place on fire. They would have taken it over and they would have made it a Chaz zone, another Chaz zone. And the Democrats would have like tried to make some excuse. Well, I can see Nancy Pelosi, this is just a reaction to the Republicans and the economic disparities that are happening in this nation right now. And without fail. But they needed Trump and the Republicans to seem like out of control violent radicals. This New York Times guy is proving every single thing that people have been saying for so long. The Capitol was bombed by Marxists in the 1980s. See?
And that gave the opening for the lunatics on the right to be like, oh, well, nothing happened here. It was just a peaceful bunch of tourists, And it's like, but nobody was here.
Not as big of a deal as the media made it out to be? Well, that hasn't stopped Rosenberg from publishing his Part 2 article earlier this year describing the false narratives that circulate around January 6th in the events that unfolded.
We're the ones, not Fox, not Breitbart.
The most peaceful burning Capitol.
There were a ton of FBI informants on the people who attacked the Capitol. That was us, not the right wing guys. You need the sources from within to dig into those places. You need the sources from within to dig into those places. But it's especially over the CIA, NSA. Because like, if you work there, you get polygraphed every year, and you're asked if you spoke to a reporter. If your answer is anything but no, you're in deep trouble. You're often talking to former people who are talking to people who are still there.
Say it again louder for the microphone, if you would, please. Say it again louder for the microphone so that we can get that clear.
We're still talking to people on the inside.
Okay, hang on, wait. Let me go ahead and read this out. You're, NYT, also talking to people who have recently left who are still talking to people on the inside at the CIA and NSA.
We're still talking to people on the inside. So people on the inside.
Because people on the inside cannot talk. Wow.
There's just neighbors and stuff. Families usually don't want to talk for good reason.
Have you guys talked to anybody who's actually been arrested?
Yeah, although most of them have their lawyers have told them not to talk to us. Like
Wise.
If you're facing serious criminal charges, you probably will think you should just talk to a journalist. Unless there's like a very specific reason that you need, like, that something good can come of it, like, there's no way you should talk to them. No good's gonna come of it.
Unless you're friendly to them. Again, if it was Antifa who rioted inside the Capitol, their lawyers would be like, talk to New York Times journalists, they're going to spin this for you. 100%.
Anything you say can end up in court, and we just don't want to be at risk. I wouldn't know.
Rosenberg is right. What good can come from speaking to a journalist who privately describes the events on January 6th as not a big deal, yet spins something entirely different for the world to read in his newspaper? Project Veritas has received letters from those incarcerated for being present that day. Voices that remain unheard describe a total lack of due process, spurred by the reactions, or in Rosenberg's words, overreaction, of how those events were portrayed around the world by the media and politicians. Stay tuned for part 2 of the series as Rosenberg continues to delve deeper into the turmoil and inner workings at the New York Times.
What is his name on Twitter? Didn't they just display it?
Capital on January for the New York Times.
Matthew Rosenberg. Let's see if he said anything since this came out. I'm actually curious to know. I would like to know. Nothing. He hasn't said a thing. Anything in the tweets and replies? Nope. Nope. He has gone radio silent. He hasn't tweeted since March 4th. Dude, this just proves it. Thoughts of the lady talking to him. He's right. I wish I didn't have to be talking to him right now. Dude, that poor lady. Dude, hats off to the women who go on these dates for Project Veritas. They are very good actors. I gotta tell them. But I'm like that one. Well, no, hang on. Let me take that back. The lady who was just in that clip was not very good at it. She's not a very good actor. Maybe I'm just catching really bad parts of it. But it's like the fact that she's a journalist is so obvious through that entire thing. But dude, what does that say about? That says less about her. What does it say about this guy? This guy right here. This guy who did not pick up on the fact that there was something weird about the fact that she was asking all these questions and making him clarify repeatedly. You mean besides? Yeah. Yeah. God. But okay, this just goes and proves it right here, guys. Like the whole entire January 6th narrative, we've known this now. I think how many people are actually still holding on to this idea that you know, the January 6th riot was actually the worst thing to ever happen to the United States in decades. Like the media overreaction was pretty clear from the beginning. Unless you had something like invested in the narrative, like were you really going along with it? And by invested in the narrative, I mean like, you know, you just simply wanted to prove Republicans are bad. Which, you know, there are a lot of people out there who do it, and Twitter is infested with this stuff. But I mean, like, how many people actually watched that and were like, oh, yeah, this is the worst. This is so awful. Oh, our nation is under attack by radicals. Don't you think it's a little strange that they made a big deal out of January 6th, but not the peaceful burning down of entire towns during the Black Lives Matter riots? You know? The ongoing problems that they're still having with crime because of defunding the police, that entire group that caused that. You know, like the media wants one to be friendly. They want the other one to be completely horrible because they gain some sort of political power by making Republicans seem like they're the radicals in the room. But, you know, I don't recall even the Capitol burning to the ground. Nothing was set on fire from what I understand. The Capitol's fine. They were asking them politely to leave. Clearly, that wasn't that big of a deal. But you have during the Black Lives Matter riots, you had people dying, literally getting shot. And I'm not just talking about, like, you know, just the random guy here. No, you had Officer David Dorn die because he was trying to defend. He was a black police officer, retired, trying to defend his friend's pawn shop from rioters. They shot him over some TVs. And then you had a small girl get shot in a Wendy's parking lot. Then you had burnings building down left and right. We've got all sorts of footage about it. You had their street preachers talking about how this is reparations if they go in and bust down stores and burn down or steal from mom and pop stores and all that stuff. It's fine. I don't care if they're walking out with Gucci bags or whatever. It's reparations. You had all that happening, but that was all peaceful, and it was great. It was great because it's justice. Justice. Yeah, some people do it for the gram by breaking into the Capitol. They didn't really burn anything down. One person died, but it was one of the people inside the Capitol who had broken in. And she didn't have a gun on her. There's still really no explanation as to why she died or why she had to die. None. But that's the most evil thing to happen in the United States for some time. Media is nuts, dude. Don't trust the media. They are not your friend. They are not here to give you the news. They are there to tell you a story, and the story is going to be a narrative that helps them stay in power. Them and their Democrats or whoever they want to vote for, whoever they are staying in power based on their narratives. Did you see the whole Walensky thing? Rochelle Walensky of the CDC, basing like many of her, apparently, she said this herself, I'm not making this up. She said that she was watching CNN and CNN told her that the vaccine was 95% effective. And so she gave guidance that everyone needs to get vaccinated. Then Joe Biden took that and said, oh, well, I want a vaccine mandate for any business whatsoever that has a certain number of employees. And many of these businesses then said, okay, well, all of our employees have to get vaccinated, and if they don't, they lose their jobs, and many people ended up losing their jobs. The elitists say one thing, and you suffer for it. That's the way it is. Guys, Kira, thank you so much. I'm out too, guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. This has been fun. As always, we are going to do this again on Friday. Friday, same time, same channel. Be there. Who knows what kind of craziness is going to happen in between that time. But we're going to be here to cover it. We're going to be here to talk about it. And you're going to be here to talk about it with me. Because this is that kind of show. I love the conversation we have, guys. I love it. I will see you guys at a later date. Again, Friday, be here. Be ready, because we're going hard, dog. We're going hard. All right, guys. Y'all have a good rest of your week. Have a good hump day. I will see you guys on Friday. Peace.